Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling, the side of modern relationships that people don't often talk about.
Yeah.
How money and deception and family dynamics really impact things.
Right.
And, you send over some fascinating material for this.
Yeah.
We have a research paper titled The Dark Side of Modern Relationships, Money, Deception, and Family Dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have some articles on the commodification of relationships. Yeah. And an interview with a divorce lawyer.
Oh, wow.
Who's seen it all.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be a really fascinating deep dive.
I think so, too.
And, buckle up, listeners, because I think we're going to uncover some surprising trends.
Absolutely.
That might just challenge some assumptions that you have about love and marriage, in the 21st century.
Yeah. One thing that really stood out to me across all these sources is this theme of relationships increasingly being seen through this transactional lens.
Okay.
Almost like we're signing a price tag to connection.
Okay, so let's unpack this commodification idea.
Yeah.
I've definitely, seen a lot more talk about situationships versus relationships lately.
Right.
But how widespread is this really?
Well, the research paper that you sent actually highlights how this has trickled down even into casual dating.
Oh, wow.
Where we see social media influencers actually advocating for monetizing everything from coffee dates to gym sessions to even basic conversation.
It's like that expectation of ROI has infiltrated romance.
It really has. It's become all about what am I getting out of this?
Wow. So have you ever encountered this pay-to-play vibe in your own dating experiences?
I haven't personally, but I can definitely see how that would make you question people's motives, right?
Absolutely.
Are you genuinely interested in me, or are you just...
Oh, your wallet.
Yeah, you're just trying to use me for content or something like that.
Right, exactly.
And the research paper also delves into the psychological impacts of this. They actually found that individuals were starting to treat potential partners as placeholders. Almost manipulating their emotions for just an ego boost rather than an actual genuine connection.
So it's not even necessarily about the money itself.
Right.
But it's this need for validation, almost like an emotional capitalism.
Yeah, exactly. And it actually ties into a psychological theory called sociometer theory, which the research paper highlights.
Okay.
And essentially it suggests that our self-esteem is really heavily influenced by how much we feel accepted and valued by others.
That makes sense.
Right. So in this commodified dating landscape, individuals might be using these kind of manipulative tactics to seek validation and boost their self-worth.
Yeah, so it's almost like this vicious cycle, right?
Totally.
The more transactional relationships become, the more people might resort to these attention-seeking behaviors to feel good about themselves.
Exactly. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It really makes you think about authenticity and vulnerability in relationships. Yeah. If we're always focused on what we're getting out of it.
The payoff.
Yeah, the payoff. Can we really be open and honest with our partners?
That's a really good point. And speaking of honesty, let's transition to another aspect of relationships highlighted in these sources.
Okay.
That often lacks at infidelity.
Oh.
It's a tough topic, but the sources really reveal just how prevalent this is in modern relationships, and maybe even more concerning is just the nonchalant attitude that some people seem to have about it.
Yeah, a source even described a woman casually admitting to cheating multiple times during a long-term relationship.
Oh, wow.
As if it were just a minor inconvenience.
Right.
And it really makes you wonder, is there this disconnect between what we say we value in relationships and then how we actually act?
Totally. It's almost like commitment has become this really fluid concept.
Yeah.
But the divorce lawyer that we're referencing in this deep dive actually offered a really different perspective on this.
Okay.
He suggested that infidelity is often a symptom of deeper relationship problems.
Oh.
Rather than the root cause itself.
I see. So instead of immediately jumping to blame and judgment, we need to try to understand the underlying reasons why someone might be driven to cheat.
Exactly. And what I found fascinating is how he even differentiates between physical and emotional infidelity.
Right.
He actually thinks that emotional affairs where there's that deep emotional connection with someone outside of the relationship can be even more damaging than physical ones.
Yeah, because that really challenges the traditional definition of infidelity,
right,
which often focuses solely on the physical act.
Exactly. So how does he define emotional infidelity then?
Well, he defines it as a situation where someone is investing significant emotional energy and intimacy outside of their primary relationship.
Okay.
Often with this element of secrecy or deception involved.
So it's not just about physical boundaries.
Right.
But emotional ones as well.
Exactly.
This makes me think about the impact of technology and social media.
Yeah.
Is it easier to form these emotional connections online now?
Yeah.
And how do we navigate those boundaries in a digital age?
That's a really great question and one that I think we should definitely explore further.
Absolutely. But for now,
yeah,
let's shift gears and delve into what this divorce lawyer has to say about marriage and the legal system.
Okay.
I mean, he's seen firsthand how these institutions intersect, and he has some pretty sobering statistics to share.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, he really offers like a reality check when it comes to the whole happily ever after narrative we often associate with marriage.
Exactly. And he revealed that over 50% of marriages end in divorce.
Wow.
Which is a pretty staggering number.
Yeah.
And it really challenges this assumption that everyone should get married.
It makes you wonder, like, if the odds are basically 50-50.
I know.
Why do we still place so much emphasis on marriage as, like, a societal ideal?
Exactly. And he actually argues that the expectation of marriage for everyone is illogical.
Yeah.
Given that high probability of failure.
Right.
He encourages us to actually critically examine our own beliefs about marriage.
Okay.
And to really question whether it aligns with our individual values and aspirations.
So instead of viewing marriage as this, like, mandatory life stage, we should be approaching it with more intentionality and consideration.
Exactly. And he also emphasizes the importance of understanding, like, the legal and financial implications of marriage.
Okay.
Particularly when it comes to divorce.
Yeah.
He's seen firsthand just how messy things can get.
Oh, yeah.
And he's actually a big advocate for prenuptial agreements.
Really?
As a way to protect both parties.
That's interesting because prenuptial agreements are often seen as this, like, taboo topic, right? Something couples, like, avoid discussing out of fear of, like, jinxing their relationship.
Right. It's like bad luck.
Yeah. But he presents a totally different perspective.
But tell me about it. What does he say?
He sees prenups not as a sign of distrust, but as a way to approach the relationship with more transparency and responsibility.
Okay.
He argues that by defining the economic terms up front, couples can avoid potential conflict and resentment later on.
Especially if things don't work out.
Exactly, especially if the marriage doesn't last.
Right. And he actually even shares this story about a prenup clause that penalized a wife for weight gain.
Oh, wow.
Which really just shows how these societal expectations and, like, personal insecurities can seep into even these legal agreements.
Yeah, it's a pretty extreme example, but it really highlights how prenups can sometimes reflect these deeper issues within a relationship, even if they are intended to protect both parties.
It seems like prenups are almost like this double-edged sword.
Totally.
They can be this tool for clarity and protection, but they can also reveal these, like, underlying power dynamics and control issues that might be lurking beneath the surface.
Exactly. And that leads us to a question for you, listener.
Yes.
How do you feel about prenups?
That's a great question.
Do you see them as a practical necessity or a sign of distrust?
We want to hear from you. And as we continue this deep dive, we'll explore more of the lawyer's insights.
Yeah.
Particularly his advice on maintaining healthy relationships. So stay tuned.
Shifting gears a bit, the lawyer's insights on, like, maintaining healthy relationships really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
He uses this really interesting analogy of preventative maintenance.
Okay.
Like, he compares relationships to cars.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this car analogy.
So just like, we wouldn't wait for a car to, like, completely break down before taking it to the mechanic.
Yeah.
He's saying we shouldn't neglect our relationships until they're on the verge of collapse.
Okay.
He stresses the importance of, like, regular checkups, addressing those small issues before they snowball into major problems.
That makes a lot of sense. So what does preventative maintenance actually look like in a relationship?
Well,
are we talking about, like, scheduling weekly relationship meetings?
Not necessarily. He actually suggests more subtle but consistent actions.
Okay.
Like small things. Expressing appreciation.
Okay.
Leaving a little note for your partner. Making an effort to acknowledge the positive aspects of the relationship.
Yeah.
It's about actively counteracting that negativity bias that can sometimes creep into any long-term relationship.
Right. So it's almost like those small everyday gestures that show your partner that you care.
Yeah.
But how do we balance that with the need to address those small issues
right.
before they become big ones?
Yeah.
Isn't there a risk of bringing up negativity too much?
He actually addresses that directly.
Okay.
He encourages a culture of open communication where both partners feel safe expressing their needs and concerns.
Okay.
Without fear of judgment or retaliation.
Right.
He even uses this catchy phrase, hit send now.
Hit send now. What does that mean?
It's about not letting resentment fester.
Okay.
So if something is bothering, you address it directly.
Right.
But in a calm and respectful way, of course.
Of course.
Don't let it build up until it explodes into a major argument.
That's good advice in theory.
Yeah.
But it's definitely easier said than done sometimes.
It is.
Those difficult conversations can be scary. And, we might worry about hurting our partner's feelings or creating conflict.
He acknowledges that.
Yeah.
But he argues that avoiding those conversations actually does more harm in the long run.
Right.
He believes that healthy relationships require this delicate balance.
Okay.
Between expressing appreciation and also addressing concerns.
This makes me think about how often we compare our relationships to this idealized standard we see in movies or on social media, which, are rarely realistic portrayals of what actual relationships are like.
Yeah, he's actually quite critical of the impact of social media and influencer culture on relationships.
Oh, interesting.
He argues that these platforms often present a distorted and idealized version of love.
Yeah.
Leading to unrealistic expectations and comparisons.
It's like we're constantly bombarded with these curated highlight reels of other people's seemingly perfect relationships.
Right.
Which can make us feel inadequate or dissatisfied with our own.
He uses this really striking phrase to describe it. He calls it white teeth and rotting gums.
Oh, wow.
So on the surface, everything looks perfect.
Yeah.
But beneath that facade, there might be these deeper issues that are being ignored or masked.
That's such a powerful image.
Yeah.
So how do we resist that pressure to portray this perfect relationship, both online and offline?
Yeah.
How do we embrace the reality that relationships are messy and imperfect?
He encourages authenticity and vulnerability with our partners and with ourselves.
So being honest about the challenges that we're facing.
Yeah, being honest about the challenges both individually and as a couple, and seeking support when needed.
Okay.
He believes that true connection comes from embracing those imperfections, not pretending they don't exist.
That's so important, but it takes a lot of self-awareness and courage to be that vulnerable.
It really does. It's not always easy.
Yeah.
But he argues that it's essential for building a truly intimate and lasting connection.
Okay, and this brings me to another fascinating aspect of his perspective.
Yeah.
He actually challenges the traditional concept of soulmates.
He doesn't believe in this idea of the one.
Oh, wow.
He sees it as a limiting belief.
Okay.
That can set us up for disappointment and this constant search for something that might not even exist.
So if we're not searching for the one,
right,
how should we be approaching finding love and building relationships?
He suggests viewing relationships as chapters in a longer story. So each relationship, whether it lasts a lifetime or a season, offers valuable lessons and experiences that shape who we are.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It really takes the pressure off of finding that one perfect person. And it allows us to appreciate the unique contributions of each relationship to our overall journey.
It's about recognizing that different people can fulfill different needs and desires at different stages of our lives.
So it's not necessarily about finding the perfect person, but finding the right person for the right chapter of your life.
Exactly. And this leads to a more realistic and nuanced understanding of love and relationships.
And speaking of reality, he doesn't shy away from the less romantic aspects of relationships, especially when it comes to finances.
He's seen firsthand how money can become a major source of conflict and resentment.
Absolutely.
In relationships, even leading to financial abuse in some cases.
That's a really important point. Money is often a taboo topic, but it's essential to have those open and honest conversations about finances.
It is.
Especially when you're in a committed relationship with someone.
Yeah. And he highlights the importance of financial transparency and clear communication about money matters.
Yeah.
He suggests that couples establish clear boundaries and agreements early on, especially when there's a significant disparity in income or assets.
So it's about being proactive and setting those expectations up front, rather than waiting for money to become a source of tension.
Exactly.
Or conflict.
He also emphasizes the importance of regular check-ins to ensure both partners feel heard and respected when it comes to financial decisions.
This makes me think about the power dynamics that can sometimes exist in relationships, especially when one partner has more financial control.
Right.
How do we ensure that both partners feel empowered and respected?
He acknowledges that financial abuse is a real and often overlooked form of domestic violence. He urges individuals to be aware of the signs and to seek help if they feel their financial autonomy is being compromised.
That's a crucial reminder that abuse can take many forms.
Yeah.
And financial control can be just as damaging as physical or emotional abuse.
He also offers some valuable insights into the sensitive topic of infidelity, something that he's obviously encountered countless times in his work as a divorce lawyer.
Right. I bet he has some incredible stories.
I'm sure he does.
So what are some of the key takeaways from his perspective on infidelity?
Well, first and foremost, he cautions against oversimplifying it.
Okay.
Emphasizing that it's rarely the sole cause of a relationship breakdown.
Yeah.
He suggests that it's often a symptom of deeper issues.
Okay.
Such as a lack of communication, emotional distance, unmet needs.
Which kind of resonates with what we were discussing earlier
Totally.
about the importance of preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
And addressing those small issues before they escalate.
Right. He stresses that infidelity is a complex issue with multiple contributing factors.
Okay.
He also highlights the different ways that men and women tend to experience and perceive infidelity.
Oh, how so?
He suggests that men are often more focused on the physical aspect of infidelity, while women are more likely to be hurt by the emotional betrayal.
So it's not saying that men don't experience emotional pain or that women aren't affected by the physical aspect.
Right. But there are some general tendencies in how men and women process and react to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It highlights the importance of understanding and respecting those differences when trying to heal and rebuild trust after infidelity.
Absolutely. He also delves into the psychology behind it, suggesting that it can be a way for individuals to seek validation, excitement, or escape from the monotony or dissatisfaction that they might be feeling in their primary relationship.
So it's not always about a lack of love for their partner, but rather a search for something that's missing in their own lives.
It could be.
Or in the relationship.
Exactly. He emphasizes the importance of understanding those underlying motivations rather than just resorting to blame and judgment.
That's a really compassionate approach.
It is.
But I imagine it must be really difficult to maintain that level of understanding when you're the one who's been betrayed.
He acknowledges that it is a very challenging situation, but he believes that true healing requires empathy and a willingness to understand the complexities of human behavior.
That makes sense. So I imagine he's encountered some pretty wild situations in his line of work.
Oh, I'm sure he has.
So does he share any specific anecdotes about infidelity?
He does. He talks about cases of double lives, long-term deception.
Wow.
And even a pattern he's observed among some of his wealthier clients.
Okay, I'm curious, what's this pattern?
He calls it the nanny fascination phenomenon.
Nanny fascination. That sounds kind of scandalous.
A little bit, yeah.
What does he mean by that?
He's observed this recurring trend of wealthy men having affairs with their nannies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. What does he think is behind this phenomenon?
Well, he theorizes that it might be about seeking a simplified version of a relationship.
Okay.
Perhaps there's a longing for a less demanding partner.
Okay.
Someone who's less likely to challenge them intellectually or emotionally.
So it's not just about the physical attraction, but also a desire for a less complicated dynamic?
That's his theory. Of course, every situation is unique.
Yeah.
But he's noticed this pattern enough times to find it significant.
It's a reminder that even in seemingly ideal circumstances, like financial security, individuals can still be susceptible to temptation and make choices that ultimately lead to heartbreak and pain.
It reinforces the idea that relationships are complex and human nature doesn't always follow a logical or predictable path.
Speaking of complex topics, the lawyer also has some pretty strong opinions about prenuptial agreements.
He does.
Which we touched on earlier.
Right.
And he's a huge advocate for them.
Yeah, he is.
He even suggests that they can be romantic in a way.
Romantic?
Wait, romantic?
I know, right?
How can a legal document about dividing assets be considered romantic?
He argues that prenups are ultimately about transparency trust. And taking responsibility for the economic realities of a relationship. He sees them as a way for couples to define their own rules and ensure that both parties are protected in case of a divorce.
So instead of viewing a prenup as a sign of distrust, he sees it as a way to build a stronger foundation based on honesty and clear expectations.
He challenges that taboo surrounding prenups.
Yeah.
And suggests that they can actually be a really powerful tool for couples to approach their relationship with more awareness and intention.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
But earlier we were discussing how prenups can sometimes reflect these deep issues within a relationship.
Right.
Like control or insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
So how does he reconcile those two viewpoints?
He acknowledges that prenups can be misused or manipulated.
Yeah.
As we saw with that example of the weight gain clause.
Right.
However, he believes that when approached with the right intentions, prenups can actually foster a deeper level of trust and understanding between partners.
I see. So it's all about the motivation behind it.
Yeah.
And how it's used within the relationship.
Exactly. He also mentions this growing trend of fidelity clauses in prenuptial agreements.
Fidelity clauses, what are those?
These are clauses that outline financial penalties for infidelity.
Oh, wow.
So if one partner cheats, they might lose certain assets or have to pay a significant sum to the other partner.
That seems pretty intense.
Yeah.
Does he support the use of these clauses?
He's actually generally against them.
Okay.
He believes that they oversimplify a complex issue.
Okay.
And they often fail to address the underlying causes of infidelity.
Right, which aligns with his earlier point about infidelity being a symptom of these deeper relationship problems.
Right.
So punishing someone financially doesn't really solve the root of the issue.
Exactly. He argues that imposing financial penalties doesn't address the emotional pain, the betrayal, or the lack of communication that often contribute to infidelity.
It seems like his overall approach to relationships is about understanding, not punishing.
Right. He's less interested in assigning blame and more focused on helping couples develop the skills and awareness.
Okay.
They need to build healthy, sustainable relationships.
And he recognizes that social media and influencer culture can have this detrimental effect on relationships, creating unrealistic expectations and this pressure to portray perfection.
He's particularly critical of couples who publicly deny relationship problems only to later announce their separation or divorce.
Right. It's like they were so focused on maintaining this facade that they miss opportunities for genuine connection and support.
He encourages couples to be more authentic, both online and offline.
Okay.
And to resist that pressure to conform to these unrealistic societal expectations.
It's about embracing the messiness and imperfections of real relationships.
Exactly.
Rather than trying to present this picture-perfect image that doesn't actually reflect reality.
He makes this really compelling argument that true happiness in relationships comes from within, not from external validation or comparisons.
Right.
And it leads to one of his most insightful observations.
Oh, what's that?
He says, empty barrels make the most noise.
Empty barrels make the most noise.
Okay. He uses this analogy to suggest that those who are truly happy and secure in their relationships don't their love and affection to the world.
Right.
Like their love is this quiet, steady flame. Not a firework display.
I love that.
He contrasts this with those who are constantly seeking attention and validation for their relationship, often as a way to compensate for underlying insecurities or doubts.
It's a reminder that true love doesn't need an audience.
Doesn't need an audience.
It's about that deep, intimate connection between two people.
Right.
Not about the external approval or validation.
It's about the quality of the connection, not the quantity of the likes.
Absolutely. And this leads to like a really profound question.
Yeah.
If we strip away all of the societal expectations, the financial complexities, the performative aspects of relationships, what are we left with?
What is the essence of true connection?
What a powerful question.
Right.
And it's one that we're going to continue to explore in the final part of our deep dive into the world of modern relationships. As we've been going through all this material, I've noticed something interesting about the divorce lawyer's perspective.
Yeah.
It's like, on one hand, he's super cynical about marriage as an institution.
Right.
You know, he's seen all its failures firsthand.
Right.
But then on the other hand, he still seems to have this like deep belief in the power of love.
It's a weird contradiction, isn't it? It's like he's jaded but hopeful at the same time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us can relate to that when it comes to love.
Definitely. We want to believe in lasting love, but we've also seen how easily things can fall apart.
Exactly.
We all carry the baggage, you know.
Scars.
Yeah, the scars of past relationships, the disappointments, the heartbreaks.
Right, and all of those experiences can make us hesitant to open ourselves up again.
Absolutely. It's like we build these walls around our hearts to protect ourselves from getting hurt.
Right. He actually talks about that fear of vulnerability.
He does.
And compares it to the experience of like loss and grief. How the pain of losing a loved one, whether through death or divorce, can make us afraid to love again.
Yeah, because we're terrified of experiencing that same level of pain.
Right.
So we hold back, we keep people at arm's length.
And he suggests that it's this fear of vulnerability that actually prevents us from experiencing like the fullness of love.
Oh, wow.
So it's like this catch-22.
Totally.
We want love, but we're afraid of the pain that can come with it.
He argues that true intimacy requires vulnerability.
Okay.
It's about trusting ourselves and our partners enough to let our guard down to be seen and loved for who we truly are.
With all our flaws.
With all the flaws.
And he offers this really beautiful mindfulness exercise inspired by Thich Nhat Hanh about hugging someone as if it's the last time.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Such a powerful image.
It encourages us to be fully present in our interactions, to savor those small moments.
Right.
To express our love and gratitude freely, knowing that nothing is permanent.
It makes you realize how precious every moment is, every hug, every laugh, every shared experience.
Yeah, don't take those things for granted.
This reminds me of the story he shared about getting his client's dog back.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
That story really touched me. And it wasn't even directly related to like divorce or family law.
I know.
But it just spoke volumes about his empathy.
His character.
Yeah.
It really showed how deeply he understood that bond between humans and animals.
And his willingness to go above and beyond for his clients.
Yeah, and his own personal experience with losing his dog Buster really drove home that point about the impermanence of life and cherishing the connections we have.
Yeah, he even talked about how after losing Buster, he was hesitant to get another dog.
Right.
But then this like goofy mange-ridden puppy wandered into his life.
She lulls his heart.
Yeah, and it's just a beautiful reminder that love can surprise us.
Yeah.
Even when we least expect it. And that even when we've been hurt, our hearts have this incredible capacity to heal.
And open up again.
His story reminded me of a quote by Rumi. The wound is the place where the light enters you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's so true. Sometimes it's through our experiences of loss and heartbreak that we learn to appreciate love even more deeply.
I think that's a good place to leave our listeners with a question.
Yeah, what's that?
Given the impermanence of life and relationships, how can you better appreciate and nurture the connections that matter most to you, starting today?
What a powerful question to end on today. We've really explored the complexities of modern relationships.
Yeah.
We uncovered these often overlooked undercurrents of commodification and deception.
Right.
And all the legal implications that can come up.
And while we've delved into the challenges, we've also discovered some valuable insights and strategies.
Absolutely.
For building stronger, more authentic connections.
It's about being mindful and communicative and really committed to nurturing both ourselves and our relationships.
It's about embracing vulnerability.
Yes.
Appreciating the present moment.
Absolutely.
And remembering that love in all its messy and imperfect forms is a gift worth cherishing.
Could not have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope it's given you some food for thought.
Yeah.
And maybe even inspired you to approach your own relationships with more awareness, intention, and gratitude.
Absolutely.